It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas. It's time to grab your fur baby, a nice bottle of cold kombucha, snuggle up next to the fire, and spend the next hour with us on Cat Daddy Radio. Welcome to Cat Daddy Radio. Today, our episode topic is Conversations with Cats, Robert Mesh's lifetime quest to build fun with felines. I'm your host, Brent Holdberg, and along with me is the esteemed Richa Gupta. And Richa, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm having
Looks like you have a case of the giggles today.
I do have a case of the giggles. Cats do that to you, right? They make you giggle.
They do. They are fun.
They're silly. We know how much love Robert has for his cats, for Dina's cats.
Absolutely.
It's the one thing he wants to do first thing in the morning, take care of his cats.
So today I'd like to discuss what kind of gifts can we get homeowners that have cats. So sometimes I'd like to give them catnip, jingle balls, sometimes the self scoopers. I think those are great too.
I was going to go more along the line of scratch post and I love my cat mat.
You know. Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. That's good. So what's your favorite part about cats?
Stop. We can't do this.
All right, we can't do this.
We're done. That's as far as I can go with this ridiculous cat charade.
Okay. So that is the best.
Where did you even find this graphic? I don't understand.
Well, the talented Mr. Mark Warner can come up with anything he wants.
Oh.
Okay, so anyway, today on Smoker Broker Radio, we are going to discuss writing an offer in this insane market that we have. So, Mr. David Tanner says cat litter is a good one. So we should do that one. No, I mean, and the funny thing is, it's not just insane here. The market's insane around the country, which seems so bizarre to me because it's like you think that everyone would be shifting to one place and they can't get it, but if it's all like that.
So I think what's happened, I think I was reading on Inman News. I can't believe I can't remember where I was reading it. It said home prices across the country have gone up about 14%. That's a significant jump in the span of a year.
Yeah.
Things were kind of closed and didn't really start opening up, and people didn't start going back out till last summer. So between last summer and now, honestly, that's a significant jump. We are seeing it firsthand when we are making offers, when we're looking at listings that are far and few in between. And in every market that I've ever worked in, whether it be, all the way up north, even as far as Prosper, down to, True Dallas Homes, it's insane. It's insane how fast homes are moving. And it's a sticker shock, I think, for a lot of folks that haven't been in the housing market for a while.
Right.
Things have increased, and people are willing to pay the price. If I think COVID, I guess a silver lining out of COVID. I don't really know if there's a lot of silver linings, but I think it's really made people appreciate and reevaluate what's really, really important. And if we are spending so much more time at home with our immediate families, having a happy, comfortable, safe space, I think has hit the top of the list. Mm-hmm. I'll take care of the house later, or we'll get a new house later. And I think everyone has just realized, okay, no more of that. No more waiting.
And how much too has it raised the price further away from the cities because people don't have to go into the office. They can Zoom everywhere.
Yep. Home price is it's not just Dallas proper. All of the suburbs of the DFW Metroplex are seeing this increase in price.
Right.
Yeah.
All around the country too. It's crazy. And, of course, now we're finally rolling into spring. We've got some nice weather. The cars are dusted with a nice yellow sheen of pollen everywhere. So that's horrendous. I'm sure Robert's
Zyrtec, folks.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Zyrtec and house hunting. That's where it's at every weekend.
I want to go back to virtual. So for agents nowadays, it's hard for buyers, and it's hard for buyers' agents to put in offers and get them accepted. We're seeing instances where there's 30, 40, 50 offers on a property. And it is very, very difficult. We had one of the top agents in our office say that he put an offer in on a property. I think they went $47,000 over asking. They paid for all of the seller's expenses, and the listing agent didn't even bother to send him an email or anything personalized saying that, you know, they're going to go with someone else. They just sent the mass email saying we went with another buyer. And it's frustrating because it disenfranchises a lot of buyers. You know, you have different situations, but you have people coming from California and New York who sold their home for a ton of money, and the homes look cheap to them here. So they're able to just drop a bunch of cash. You know, they don't care if they're overpaying because it's still cheaper than what they had before. You're also seeing people going with hard money lenders so they can come in as cash buyers. Mm-hmm. And it is just really, really difficult. So we want to talk today about some of the tips and strategies that you can use to get your offer accepted. Now, it's definitely not a guarantee, but you know, we've had good success in our firm getting offers accepted. And what's weird to me is it almost feels like you're not really helping your client, but you are, right? Because they want the house. They're like, go get that house for me. And all the stuff that we're putting in these offers are something that 2 years ago we would have never done, right? We would have never offered to pay for closing costs. Yeah.
Or offer to pay closing costs for the seller, right? In addition to all of the fees that you're going to pay for the purchase of your loan and for the home.
Right. So let's go ahead and kick it off. So Richa, what is the most important thing to a seller? Like, what's the number one thing that a seller is going to look for, I guess?
I mean, it sounds really crude. At the end of the day, it's the price, right? What the offer is, all the other stuff I think is very important, but top dollar, what are you willing to pay for this house? That's the first line item they all want to see. Right. And the number one thing that I have found that has worked for clients is that if you want your offer to be seen, see the house as soon as you can and make an offer as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the first 5, 10 that you see really stay fresh in your mind. After that, like if it gets to an obscene number, like 10, 15, 20, those become a blur. And literally all they're doing is inputting your data into a spreadsheet. And we're just, net solution. Yep. What is the bottom? And then then the next factor they're looking at is leases. How long are you going to lease back the home? Are you going to lease the home at all? Contingencies, completely out. Don't even consider it.
Right.
If you have to sell your home to purchase the next one, even without this market, we tell you, if you have a contingent home, right? If you need to sell yours, need the cash out of your home, it needs to be fully under contract, out of option period.
It's right? My money and I need it now.
Yeah, it's my money and I need it now. Literally, J.G. Wentworth.
That's it. Well, so I mean, we'll go back even more simplistic. So the number one thing, obviously, to a seller is sales price. But at the end of the day, they're going to see how much are they going to net, right?
Yes, net.
And so we're going to take it at a real simplistic level now, and then we can get into higher brow stuff later on. But sure. Let's go with a normal offer before today's market in general. So Richa, let's say I'm going to have you put an offer in on a house, and we'll go through kind of section by section. So let's say it's a $400,000 house. You think it's worth $400,000. So what usually for a decent offer, you're going to put down like what percentage of cash?
Usually people are putting down 20% cash. That's a pretty standard for a conventional loan. This is not an FHA loan.
FHA, why is that? Why 20?
That's usually just the leverage that most lenders require. They need to see that you have an X amount of cash in your pocket to be able to carry the liability of the loan.
Right. And there's also then you avoid mortgage insurance, PMI.
You avoid mortgage insurance. Exactly. Right. You avoid mortgage insurance.
So you're going to put an offer in. So you're going to put down $80,000 and you're going to finance $320,000 to offer this $400,000. Then when you get down to like earnest money, in general, we're talking about 2 years ago. So what kind of earnest money would you put down on a $400,000 house?
Pretty standard earnest money is 1% of the sales price. So that would be $4,000 that you put in.
Okay. Now, what about option periods, which, that's where you have the time to go through the inspection. You get to review everything, negotiate repairs. How much money for that and how many days? So usually pretty stable was $100. It's honestly really, really low, but $100 and anywhere between 7 to 10 days. 7 is usually where most folks are okay with. 10 days if the seller doesn't really care or that
you can really push that it's a fixer-upper property that'll need multiple types of inspections other than just a general home inspection.
Right. If it's a pool or if they find something, you may have to extend the option as well.
Yeah, pool, you can very clearly tell there's like a foundation issue. There's a lot of foliage, like especially on properties that have a lot of land. You want to have an arbor specialist come and take a look at the trees, the health of the trees, because that can be a nuisance later.
That's a great one. That's a great point. So, okay, so then we're
$4,000 in earnest money.
$4,100
for the option fee, which is for 7 days.
Okay, what about title policy?
Title policy is usually paid by the seller, by the person, and that is basically an insurance guaranteeing you that the title, the person that has owned this home, is them, and they are giving you the title of that property without any liens, without any problems on who owns the property, without any issues with the deed, which is where the title office that this earnest money rests in, that's where that title office comes in. That's where they do that process.
And that's usually about 1% of the loan is usually when you want to roughly calculate what that is. Okay, and then as we're going along further, one thing that's important, or in general, is when you're going to close, and usually we say like a 30-day close is pretty standard, I'd say. Sometimes maybe a little bit further.
Looks like we lost Brent, folks.
Oh no! I'm here. Mark, can you hear me?
There you are.
Jeez, I gotta pay my bill. I thought you didn't like what I was saying. I was like, that's a standard.
You need to stop pretending you're working at home. We understand you're at Starbucks. That's just a backdrop in the back. Stop using their free Wi-Fi, folks.
So usually when we talk about closing, we usually put about 30 days. It's 30 to 45, but 30 is fairly standard. What about
now 30? Let's make it very clear. It's 30 days, not from when you see the house, not from when you put in the offer, from the day the parties.
Right.
Did I go out there for a second? I can't tell.
Just for a sec, but it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. From the day
from the day both parties have agreed on the terms of the sales of the house. So if I make an offer on Wednesday and by the time we've figured out all the details, it's Friday, day one is Friday.
That's a great point, because a lot of times negotiations, not so much now, but in the past, they would take sometimes 5 days.
Yep.
Yeah. And now your lender's saying, we can't close in 25 days. So that's something to be aware of. Home warranty.
Yeah, you asked for it.
2 years ago. Yep.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
Anywhere from $500 to $700 usually.
I
think in there. And that, covers that buyer for the first year. The seller provides for it.
Yep.
And so that way, and it covers everyone, right? So it always happens in Texas that somebody closes on their house in the middle of summer, and the second day that they're living in the house, the AC goes out. So that at least protects the buyer with a home warranty, that they can at least get something repaired and they don't go after the seller and everybody's not all mad.
And that's the thing is, I think I always try my best. We've talked about mantra. I don't know what is going on my side. Sorry.
Man, awful. It's probably me, yeah.
I don't know what's happening. I literally, anyways, my go-to mantra is our job is to help you manage your expectations, right? To understand what's coming. When you purchase a home, honestly, let's be there's very few cases where there's like serious foul play by the seller in terms of like an AC or a water heater that hasn't already become evident in the inspection and all the walkthrough and all of that.
Right. Unless they're hiding something, it's a problem.
Unless they're majorly hiding, right? Like they just kind of did a shoddy job. But again, this is why you use a reputable inspector to really see what's going on. And if you're nervous about the AC, hire an AC specialist to look at it.
Right.
But you have to be prepared that it's just the law of nature. How it works is if you buy something, especially like a home, you have to be prepared to incur that extra cost of a broken AC system or a need of a brand new water heater. And yes, it is a lot of money, but I always tell my buyers, like, look, if you're not prepared to incur that kind of cost later on, we have no business purchasing a home.
Yep.
Just because the lender gave you a loan does not mean.
Right. Well, and as good agents too, we'll point out, hey, just so you know that we're obviously not inspectors. That AC looks old. Maybe it passed inspection, but that one, it's a 15-year-old AC. It's not going to be around much longer. So just be prepared when you're making your offer, right?
Yes.
Yes. The other thing, when we're still saying 2 years ago, is let's say the seller is asking for a lease back. They want a temporary lease back, meaning they get to close on their home and they want a few days to a month or maybe more to be able to stay in their home and move and arrange everything. So in the past, we would, say, okay, we can give you a lease back. And if it's a couple days, we'd let them have it for free. But if it's longer than maybe 4 or 5 days, then what we did is we found out what the buyer's mortgage rate was going to be, or the mortgage payment was going to be, divide that by 30.
Yes.
On the new home. Yes.
So if the $400,000 home,
yep.
What is my monthly mortgage going to be there divided by 30, so you can prorate it for the number of days that the seller is going to continue to stay in that home, because now you are the landlord.
Right. Exactly right. So if it's a $400,000 house, maybe the payment's $3,000 a month. I don't know, that's high, but we'll just use that. So then 30 days. So you say $100 a day, right? So if they're going to rent it for 2 weeks, then you say, $1,400, something like that. So that's kind of how it was. Is there anything else that I've missed on the contract in the past that we have done? I mean, we've talked about contingencies, and the contingency in the past, because you brought that up, was, if you have to sell your own house and you need the funds from that to be able to buy the new home, we would always advise our clients that, look, don't even start putting in offers until your house is actually under contract. It has to be under contract. Go ahead.
And under contract doesn't mean just in the option period, because as we know, an option period can be fickle, right? Somebody can do an inspection on your home that you're trying to sell and realize, this has a lot more updates and work that we want to do. And so they'll back out. So we really, really encourage you, it's in your best interest that you're out of the option period. Your home is now officially in the loan underwriting process on the buyer side, right? And so the earnest money is really at play. So all parties involved are very serious about having the closing occur.
Right.
So then you have a little bit more of a solid timeline to work with. If your house isn't even under contract, you don't know when you're going to close on the house. You don't know when you'll have that money to buy the next house. Right. So the home you're wanting to purchase, the odds of that buyer or that seller accepting your offer, slim to none, because they don't have your timeline. Maybe they need to sell that to buy it. And that happens. We've had multiple occasions where you've got a huge relay race of like 4 or 5 homes that need to be sold to purchase the next. And one of those dominoes falls and doesn't go through, nobody can buy a house or sell the house. You're
right. I think I've seen it just a few times personally. It wasn't my deals, but I've just seen it where somebody puts in an offer and their house has, they put like a 60-day close and their house hasn't even hit the market yet. And I mean, I've seen it happen. I've seen it go through before, but I mean, that's a big risk for the sellers to take to even bother taking it off the market. 2-3 years ago, that was probably more common, but as we're going to get into it in a second, today that's nothing. And now I don't even know when it was. When did we start using appraisal waivers? Last year?
Probably
maybe 2 years ago.
Maybe
before the market went crazy, we really didn't use them that much. We had them, but there was no reason. The only time we would use them is multiple offers on a lower priced home, right? Let's say it's a $200,000 home and that one happens to get driven up. We would use that, and we'll explain that in a second. Is there anything else I'm missing in the market of the past that we would do when we'd write it? I mean, we would talk about on the third party financing addendum, we would talk about days for financing approval, for buyer's approval, right? Mm-hmm. And the standard on that we put is 21 days. Mm-hmm. Saying, hey, this is to make sure the buyer's completely, good. The property hasn't made approval yet. That's with the appraisal, but that's not what this is for. This is for buyer approval. So, has the lender reviewed all their documents, all their tax returns, make sure everything's good, and
are they a viable customer to purchase this loan?
Right. That's exactly right. And then, then we'll say, all right, they're pretty much good pending the appraisal and pending verification of employment at the end to make sure, and that they don't take out any crazy loans or do anything to mess up their credit. God forbid.
Or buy any furniture for the new house. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Well, if you do it, you better pay cash.
All cash.
What's funny is when I bought the house I was in currently, we were under contract. It was a new construction. We were under contract, and I was good friends with the lender. And I had went out and bought 2 cars, but I bought them cash. But I sent him a picture of the 2 cars in the driveway with paper plates. And I was like, what do you think? He lost his mind. So have a little fun today. That might have been April Fool's Day.
You were so mean. That guy probably had a coronary and he's probably 30. That's not.
Yeah, he was younger than that. Yeah. Oh well, that's what you're gonna do. Oh well.
Anyway.
So yeah, we put 21 days for financing approval, and that number is negotiable based on what the lender tells you, right? We just want to make sure that the lender does everything they need to do, their due diligence, in order to approve the buyer for the loan in time. And if they don't do it in time, or if they can't get it done, then the buyer is going to lose their earnest money. So we want to make sure that all of that gets wrapped up within those 21 days. That's what we would put in the past. Mm-hmm. Anything else? I think that's it. As far as, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah,
all right.
This is traditional loan with. Yeah.
I'm going to jump into our sponsors before I
do the sponsors.
I'll do the sponsors. So, you were talking about a reputable inspector. Well, I've got a reputable inspector, Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He is our go-to home inspector. We, of course, always give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, finishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded. Red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. That's Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. Our second sponsor is Greg Holdberg with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. Liberator is now offering a health savings account Visa debit card. Receive up to $2 of medical benefits for every $1 you contribute to your account. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688 or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com. And our final sponsor is Mr. George DiGianni, and I'm going to play the voiceover work because he's got so much of a better voice than I do, and he sounds so much better. So here we go. It'll play.
Hi, this is George DiGianni. Did you know in 2018 there were 120,000 realtors in Texas? That's the most Texas realtor population they've ever seen. 2 years later, 2020, there are now 140,000 realtors in Texas. Have you taken time to consider what sets you apart from all of your other competitors? Why should a prospect choose you? Well, I'm the only mortgage lender that will help you excel beyond your current level of success by incorporating both my Harvard academic knowledge and my 29 years of business prowess in a consultative session that is free to you. I will impart my knowledge about the business fundamentals you may not have been exposed to in the past. How do we do this? Get in touch with me today, George at sublimefinancial.com.
You know how we set ourselves apart? We give free cats with every home purchase.
And Robert comes and personally delivers them to you in a pretty little basket and bow.
Mm-hmm. He actually grooms them for you.
Gross.
It is gross. All right. So, like I said earlier, our topic is putting in an offer, writing an offer in today's market. So we discussed everything we did in the past, and now everything that you've known for your entire career, you just throw it out the window, and let's go ahead and go on to where we're writing an offer. And the trickiest part is, first of all, I think the hardest thing for agents is comping, right? To know what a house is worth. And that almost gets thrown out the window now because almost everything's going to get accepted regardless. So you just kind of throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
It does seem like that's what you're doing. I mean, we still do our due diligence. We do still look at the comps because sometimes people are pricing the homes at an obnoxious price, and I think it's very dependent on the price point, on how much leeway the seller can get away with the amount of work or updates that a home needs. It really is dependent on the price point. But yes, still based on the comps have all been elevated. We have seen that consistently. And so you see that information. Let's go back to the $400,000 example, right? You see that the $400,000 house, it's comping and selling kind of right around, within 5K of that, also up and down. then you know that it's priced well, that the home is priced well. And if the home inside meets all of your needs, and you think probably an average public would like it, mine is like a weird, quirky house that, you know, the average public wouldn't purchase. We're not going to include those outliers, but you can pretty much rest assured that the house is going to sell definitely for list price, but more likely for significantly over in that price range.
It's funny too, because now when you look at a home on the MLS, if it's been on for 7 or 10 days, you're like, what's wrong with it?
Something is wrong. Yeah.
Right. And 2 years ago, we were 30 days on market was kind of average. That was fine.
Yeah.
You know? 30
days was fine to give you a couple weekends to really, you know, settle in, see the house, maybe have an open house, have folks come by and see it, make some adjustments in your showings. Yeah.
Now our offer is definitely going to change based on how many offers are in. Right.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You know, as we started creeping into this market, it was, okay, there's no other offers in it. We saw it immediately. We're going to give them an offer full asking price if we've comped it and it meets value, right? If we think it's worth 400, then we'll go ahead and put in a full offer price. And we would keep everything else the same that we discussed earlier. So seller pays for title. You know, if they want to lease back, they got to pay for it. We kind of kept everything the same. But as, you know, and then if there were multiple offers, we try to glean how many offers are in, right? You know, how many are in there. And if they're vague, that doesn't help. But if they say, oh, well, we have just one offer. Okay, well, maybe we'd go $1,000 to $2,000 over. You know, if, oh, we have 5 offers. Okay, then we're probably going to go 10,000 over. But as we're coming in to the market that we are now, we approach that a totally different way. So that $400,000 house, like Richard was saying earlier, we want to be the first ones to see it if possible. You know, if they go live on a Thursday morning, well, we better be there Thursday morning, because believe it or not, the seller will still give you a level of value to you putting that offer in first. You kind of get a preference, a little bit of preference, just because you were the first offer that came in.
You become their point of reference, right? You become like all of their offers get to start being compared to that one. Then if there's another one that's, you know, significantly more stellar than the one that you have purchased, then that becomes the next reference point.
That's exactly.
And so on and so forth.
That's probably the best way. See, that's why I bring you on here, because you articulate so much better than me. So let's say we're going to go see a house, and the crazy thing is, when we go see the house, we know it hit the market that morning. We still call and say, hey, are you working any offers? And it's insane. But, you know, you'll either get not yet, or yeah, we have a couple coming in, we haven't received them, or yes, we have like 3 already. You know, and that somehow...
And I've definitely been, and I've been in that circumstance, right? That the house just went in the MLS at 11:59.
Yep.
You're calling at 12:15, and some people are just making blind offers without seeing it. Like, we just want the house in our hand first, and then we'll look at it later.
Yep, and that's always that's a concern, because it's a concern to you as a buyer's agent, because, you know, I mean, we do what our buyers want, but if they want us to put an offer in sight unseen, we want to make sure that they're happy with the house. And for us, on a selfish reason, is we want to make sure they're not just grabbing it to waste our time, and then we go out there and, oh, never mind, cancel, and they're not really serious about buying. And the same thing is...
and I feel like what's happened, there's been a few bad apples that have done that kind of still, and that's what's given people a bad rap. There are very few people that are blindly willing to spend $450,000 on a house, or on anything for that matter.
Yep.
There's a very small group of people that can afford to do that.
Right. Not me.
So,
you know, and the other thing is too, for the sellers, they don't want to just take it off the market if someone's not serious about it, because, I mean, it's okay now, but it still doesn't look great that you see that it's back on the market. You know, what's wrong with it? What happened? So, you know, we got to make sure, I personally like to make sure that my clients have seen the house. And if they're out of town, I will go there and I will FaceTime with them, or I'll record it and send it to them to make sure they've at least seen it. But I would much rather them actually be there and actively walk it, because that just kind of, it helps them and it helps us too. Because what if, I don't know, they buy the house, the first time they see it is when they move in, and now they're like, this house smells weird. And you're like, does it? Because I didn't notice anything, you know, and then they're all mad at you. It's not worth it. So if you can get them to come in, or even if they have a family member that wants to come, at least somebody that can be an advocate for it. So let's say, Richa, we're going to put an offer in, and let's just talk about the offer amount first. So let's say it's listed at 400. It's been on, let's say it's Friday. They say that they already have multiple offers and they're going to be making a decision on Sunday. So what?
Which happens. This is not like to rile up the crowds, guys. This is legitimately happening. The house will go on the market Friday morning and they're making decisions Sunday afternoon by 5 p.m. All offers have to be submitted.
Yep, highest and best. So what's the first thing you do, Richa, when your buyer says, okay, I want to put an offer in? What do you do?
Well, I've already had the conversation with them about their lender and their pre-approval letter, but that's the first person we talk to is the lender, that this is the offer we're making on this property. This is a pre-approval letter that we need for it. Because if you go into any of these situations with, you have to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed before you present anything. Yep. It can't be, oh, I'll give you my approval letter in a week or in 2 days or 5. No,
they better be in that offer. I was part of a good mastermind of some of the top KW agents in the country, and they were saying that one of the first things they do is they call the listing agent, and it's hard nowadays because a lot of times the listing agent will not pick up or respond, which is ridiculous. But if you get a hold of them, some of the questions you need to ask are, what's important to your sellers? Because they can't tell you what to offer, right? But what's important to your sellers? Another thing is, I just wanted to introduce myself as a buyer, as the buyer's agent. So you kind of create that relationship. How do you want, what's your preferred form of communication? Because, sometimes some people are callers and some people are texters and some people like email. Ask them. It goes a long way. And finally, how do you want me to submit the offer? And that is, do you prefer it all in one file to where you can scroll down and see it? Or do you like it broken up into multiple files? And that was something I had never thought about. It's kind of like, who cares? But if you are just trying to be the best and show that buyer's agent, hey, I'm going to do exactly what you said. I'm going to be so easy to work with. It might sway the sellers to pick your buyers. So let's say
the relationships you build matter, right? The relationships you have with your buyer or the party that you're representing matters.
Yes.
And it's really, really important that the working relationship between the two agents is also a smooth, professional transaction.
Oh my God. It's night and day when you have a good agent.
It's night and day when you meet a true professional versus Sally Joe
versus
from down
the other 90%.
Versus Sally Joe from down the block or Billy Bob that doesn't know what they're doing. And it's very evident from day one. You can tell from that first conversation with a agent, buyers, sellers, whatever it may be, the level of competency they have, the level of experience they have in this market or in real estate itself.
Okay. So offer price. Let's say they're asking 400, you comped it, and it's probably worth maybe a little bit more than 400. So what is the cash down and the financing amount? Like, what's the offer price that you put in? We'll just talk about that.
So like we talked about, if there's multiple offers, if there's 10 offers in there
are multiples.
There are multiples, right? If you're 5 and up, offering $5,000 or $10,000 over list price is not going to cut it. You're really going to need to up it into the $15,000 to $25,000 over list price, potentially. Now, to even be considered, this is not to get the offer accepted. This is to even be considered, because all the other 10 will do the same. And then, there might be more that come in after you submit yours because there's a timeline.
Yep.
And so usually, I would offer, if you're really considering it and you really want the house, start at 425. So they see right off the bat that you're a serious contender in this game.
I love it. Now, and I would do the same, 25 to 30,000, something like that. And a lot of times, a good rule of thumb, it's crazy, but they end up closing about 10% over, which is just nuts. Now, what would you say though if you comp it and you're like, this house is only worth like 360, like they're out of their mind, but your buyer's like, well, I want it. I want it, Richa, make it happen.
So the thing is that's where things can get really difficult. And I feel like that's where you as an agent really have to be a good advocate for your buyer and present them with all of the information so they can make a sound decision. If they still feel, you know what, even and based on the comps and all the other homes are selling for this much, and they really like the home, this is what they want, and it fits all of their needs, you are going to do what your client asks you to do.
Yep.
Okay?
All we can do is advise them.
Advise them. Our goal is to make sure that we have, and it is our best interest, their best interest is what's at the forefront. And so we might not think that, okay, paying $40,000 over what a house might be worth is worth it. But that's our preference, and we're not emotionally attached to this. We're just seeing cold, hard facts, right? There's nothing else involved in it for us. So we, if your client still wants to purchase the home, you make the offer for where they feel comfortable, and you still do make it competitive.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
That means if you know that the house is comping at 360 in the neighborhood, and these guys have marked it at 400, but there are still other homes, or there are, even worse, there are no other homes like it, and this one is a spectacular house, you're going to have to bite the bullet and pay the list price or more.
Yeah, if you want it. Yeah.
If you want it.
So when you're let's say though, we go back to our previous example where you think it's worth about 400, maybe a little more. We're doing multiple offers. So let's say we're going in at 425. Do you see any value of putting more as a down payment, or do you think just the 20% is probably okay?
In my experience, I have found that just the 20% is okay, because your down payment is not impacting anything at that point for the buyer. Sometimes people think that's a negotiating chip where you're showing them, oh, I do have more cash to purchase this and I am more serious. Getting to that 20% mark is so you don't have to pay that mortgage insurance on your loan. That's not providing any more or less benefit for the buyer.
Right.
It's that they're going to get the full amount that they've, the sales price of the house. How that gets in their bank account doesn't matter.
That's yes. Probably
and what pieces, right? That's for you. That's affecting you. Now, you can show, the next step we talked about was earnest money. If you want to show that you're more serious, then instead of the 1%, some people are doing 2%, 3%, 4% of the list price. Right. So instead of putting in $4,000 as the earnest money, people are doing $20,000 as earnest money.
Yep. We saw it on one of our deals. I think it was Robert's deal. They put in $25,000 down, and it does show that you're committed, right? That you're not. It
shows your level of commitment.
Now,
right.
another thing.
That's what it is, because that will impact the longevity of the deal, not your loan. That's not affecting anything.
Right. They want to. Now, I will say though that if you're limping in at 3% on a conventional, that may not make your offer as strong, because you're like, okay, these guys don't really have any cash, and that's just something that might make a seller's mind up. But
it will, because they feel like they're gonna be further requests for more
closing costs, anything
for closing costs, and not a closing cost. I don't know the last time I had anybody ask for closing costs. I literally have ever experienced that in my last 5 years, for sure. I have not.
Yeah.
In the 3% for an FHA loan in that price range, what ends up happening is it makes the seller nervous that once the inspection comes back, they're worried that because you don't have as much cash on hand, and it's unfortunate that because you don't, that you'll be a lot more worried about the items that come up on the inspection. Which again, with a real estate agent, with a legitimately valuable inspector, they'll be able to walk you through, okay, these are major issues, and these are not major issues.
Yep. And that's a tricky thing too. We'll get into those in a second. But repairs in this industry is very touchy right now. So we just talked about, earnest money, putting down a good amount. Now, option money, that's another thing. That's one that we're using. And the market's already kind of doing it. It's self-regulating. But if you want your offer accepted, you're going to put down a decent chunk of change for option, just to make sure that you're not grabbing the house to pull it off the market. So you have, say, 2 offers going out. You grab them, pull them off the market. So like our policy within our firm is to request a minimum of $500 for earnest money, or for option money. Minimum of 500, maybe 1,000. That way, if you pull it off the market for 2 days and they decide they don't like it, well, your seller at least got $1,000. And
a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and we want to make sure they're serious.
But this is exactly what you have to tell your buyers, right? If you are not serious about this house, you really don't feel like this house is going to work out. I understand the inspection is a separate part, but you if you're conveying a very serious intention to purchase the home, it will reflect in the earnest money, in the sales price offer, it'll in the option period money as well.
Yep. And we also shortened down the option period. You know, we
Yes.
shortened it down.
There's no 7 to 10 days. That's
no,
not
it's
happening.
5 days or less. And
5 or less.
we are seeing some agents putting offers in with no option. They're not doing an option period. I personally think that's a mistake because, you know, unless your buyer's got all kinds of cash and they're willing to deal with anything if the foundation's garbage or it needs a new roof, I think it's dangerous. But we are going against those at competition that, you know, they're not putting in any option money, no option period. And I've lost out on offers to that. Everything was the same with ours, but it was a cash buyer. I want to say it was an $850,000 house. We went in, oh no, it was 800. We came in at 850. I did everything that we're going to talk about in a second. And I said, 5 days, $1,000 earnest money or option money. Sorry. And they said, oh, you guys were second, but you know, you lost out to a cash offer with no option period. And you're like, how do you compete with that? Because
it doesn't matter how much money you offered, they know that nobody would go with the higher. Yeah.
So, and because repairs can be a big problem.
Cash is still king. It always has been, and that's never changed, and it's not going to in any foreseeable future, right? So that right there is the biggest thing. If you can afford to do a cash offer, you know, the people's ears perk up like, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to do the 30-day closing. I don't have to do a 45-day closing.
We don't have to worry about any appraisals or any of that stuff.
I don't have to worry about any buyer lending financing approval.
Yes.
I know these guys are serious. They're going to purchase the house. I'm going to have the cash in hand in 20 days and we're done.
And in the past,
and with no option, that means literally the day you accept the offer, after that, no one else is traipsing through your home. You don't have to pack up your kids, your dogs, your cats. Just you can go on with your normal life again at that point.
Yep. And if they back out, they're going to get that huge earnest money that you put down. So they're almost like, please go ahead. Right. And, you know, in the past, when somebody would put a cash offer in, a lot of times the cash offer would be undervalued.
Yes.
But you would go with that because you're getting the luxury of not worrying about those other issues, but not now. You know, it's going to be just as competitive and cash.
Yep.
So, okay, we do option. Now let's talk about title policy. What do you do about title?
Buyer's paying for the title policy, folks. Yep. It used to be the seller paying for it. Now the buyer's paying for it. And we talked about it. That usually comes out to about 1% of the sales price of the house.
Yeah. And you can always reach out to your title company and they'll give you an exact amount. I do review a ton of contracts every day. Robert does as well. And a lot of times we see offers being put out that they follow some of the advice, but not all of them, right? So maybe it's a pretty good offer, but then they're still asking seller to pay title. And it's not the agent's fault. The agent has told their buyer what to do, but the buyer just doesn't have the cash to do it. And it's kind of like, look, I'm sorry, that sucks. And this market's really bad for that. But are you serious? Like, do you really want your offer accepted? Because if you don't check these boxes, it's not going to even be considered.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So buyer pays for title. Obviously, even in the scenario 2 years ago, we're not asking seller to pay for closing costs for the buyer. Every now and then you get somebody that wanted to pay over and then have some closing costs paid for by the seller just to help them have a little bit more cash on hand. But the problem with that is appraisal, and we'll get to that in just a sec. So obviously we're not going to ask for a home warranty. That's, you know, it's $500, $600, $700, and it's not worth it because like you said, Richa, they're going to have a spreadsheet and they're just going to filter through. Nope. And they're going to just take the best ones. So no home warranty. We talk about the third-party financing addendum. And if you do finance, which most buyers are financing, before we said it was 21. And what do you like to put now? Like when you on your listing, Richa, what do you like to see for that?
I'm a little bit more lenient on that because I feel like there's a lot of work required on the buyer side and on the lender side that has to be done. Right. But we are seeing 10, 15 days now.
Yeah, I tell our guys to go 15 days or less, but they have to talk to the lender.
Yeah, the lender says they cannot approve all of the paperwork that you have to submit.
Yep.
All of your pay stubs, your taxes, if they cannot review that and get you an answer in 15 days,
Yep.
then don't put 15 days. But you need to talk to your lender. That constant contact with the
Yes.
agent, with the buyer, and with the lender has to happen throughout this whole process.
And one of the lenders I was working with, I said, what's the shortest amount we can get for buyer financing approval? And they said 12 days. So I just went ahead and put 15. I was like, I don't want to cut it that close because I don't want to be the one that's like, oh, sorry. So we put 15 days. Lease backs, sellers temporary residential lease. So that seller, like we said, wants to stay in that house for a while. What are you charging?
Nothing.
For how long?
Okay, so that's where it gets dicey. I really probably, I think I'm willing to give 2 weeks or so. I know you've done 30 days in the past.
No, I just did 2 months.
2 months? Oh my.
Well, when there's 30 offers, right? And the thing is, you have to talk to your buyers and be like, hey, just so you know, you're going to be paying mortgage for 2 months. So that's essentially like another $4,000 to $5,000 that you're paying.
Easy.
That goes towards that offer.
Yep. Without you owning the home.
Yep. And I'm not asking for any deposits or any of that stuff. I mean, it really feels like we're not doing the right thing for our buyers, but we are because they're instructing us to get that house for them, right? It just feels weird because of how we've been trained in the past. And it's going to be really weird for us when it shifts again.
Yes, and it's going to balance back out, and it's going to shift again. Right now, the ball, the court, the stadium, everything is in the seller's side right now.
Yes.
And I think with all of real estate, with all of, any fluctuations in the market, it's, the pendulum swinging this way and it's going to come back and it'll level out somewhere again in the middle at some point. It does feel like the buyers are losing out and are having to put up a lot more cash than they ever would have previously.
Yeah.
And not, it's not just more expensive to buy the house because the house prices are higher, but the amount of cash that leaves your pocket immedially to purchase the home, even before the loan is processed, is much higher, right? We talked about the $25,000 earnest, right? Again, that when people have a misconception on when that leaves your pocket, the day you make the offer and it's accepted, that 3 days that you have to submit it, it will leave your bank account. It will
they cash
title office. It's not just title office will cash that check and it will sit there. It will not go to the buyer or the seller, but it will leave your bank account. So that's not available at any time for you to use anymore.
Yep.
Right.
So
then you're putting in another grand, say, for the option. That's your $26,000. Then you're at the buyer's policy, right? That's another $4,000 we talked about, right? In that price range.
Inspection too.
Inspections are about $800, right? And appraisal is about $500 to $800 also.
The HOA stuff, the new thing in the HOA doc.
Yeah.
And if you're not with our group and you have no idea what I'm talking about, the new change on the HOA addendum about how that could cost your buyers a ton of money.
Pay attention.
You need to be on our team, or you need to go ask your leadership, hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Why aren't you telling me about this? Yeah. So that's what I think about. That's all I have to say about that. Let's talk about the appraisal waiver, because that's probably the number one thing we get questions about, what it is, why we use it, and how to do it right. So
another way to make your offer more valuable, in the past, pre this market, if your house did not appraise, so say we purchase price was $400,000 and the appraisal on the home came in at $390,000. Generally, rule of thumb is that the buyer would come down in price by $5,000 and the seller accept $5,000, right? Meet somewhere in the middle at $395,000.
Yeah. Buyer brings more cash, seller drops the price a little bit.
Yes, buyer brings more cash, seller brings more brings down the price. So you agree to meet somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Now in this market, what we're seeing is that you're saying it doesn't matter if the house appraises for less than. There's 3 different tiers of appraisal waivers that you're doing, right? The very first tier is it doesn't matter what the appraisal comes in at. I'm buying this house. I've offered $425,000, right, yep, for this house, and it's listed at $400,000. It doesn't matter if the appraisal comes in at $390,000. I'm still going to buy it for $425,000.
Yeah, and as a firm, we don't really agree with using that first option, because what if the appraisal comes back at $300,000 for some reason? And it's like, okay, we missed it by $100,000. One of our agents.
Even at $390,000, right? Yeah. If it's comes in less than list price, that in addition to the 25,000, you get another 10,000. It's $35,000 in cash that you're expected to provide for this loan, because the lender is only going to pay the 20% that you pay in your down payment. The 80% loan they're going to provide is going to be based on 80% of the appraised price of the home.
Yep.
So they're going to give you a loan for 80% of 390.
Yes.
Not 80% of 425. Or
we
even
are seeing some properties are eligible for an appraisal, like a waiver, and meaning like through the lender where they can skip the appraisal. And that's if the buyer is putting down quite a bit of cash.
Significantly more than 20%.
Yeah, oh yeah, way more than 20%. If they're putting 200K down, then they usually just say it's not subject to an appraisal. So that's just one thing to note. What's option number 2? What's behind door number 2, Richa?
Behind door number 2 is you put a limitation on how low the appraisal can come in. So if the sales price is 400 and you're paying 425, say you're saying, you know what, I'm willing to pay, I'm still going to pay this price if the appraisal comes in within $5,000 of the sales price or the list price of the home. Then you're like, fine, it doesn't matter, I'll pay it. But if it comes in below 390, we're not going to purchase this house for 425, and we're at that point you can renegotiate or whatever ends up happening.
We usually put in that box the list price. So we say, hey, we will, as long as this house appraises at what you guys are listing it at, because look, we're the ones offering more than you guys are asking. So that shouldn't be on you because we're choosing to go over. But if it ends up less than what you guys are listing it at, well, then that's something that we're going to have to renegotiate then. And it's, we had one of our guys, it missed appraisal by quite a bit. I think something like 60 grand or something like that. It just happened to miss. Yeah. And that's not good.
That's an immediate don't buy that house.
Don't buy that house. Or option number 3, go ahead.
In that specific situation, get one more appraisal. A third party that's not involved in any of this, that does an appraisal on the house, right? Not represented from the buyer or the seller, like completely separate, a third party.
Yep. Oh, I had that last year. That was my deal, where I think it was a $540,000 house. The appraisal came in right at 500, and the problem was it was this little neighborhood in Plano where only 2 small streets were its own subdivision in this other large subdivision, and the 2 small streets were significantly more expensive, and it missed appraisal. And we did the reconsideration, that's where you ask an appraiser, hey, can you look at these comps? This is what you did wrong. And of course, I have never had good luck with them saying, oh yeah, you're right. So we waited a little bit, and it turned out there was another house that was on the market, was going to close before ours, and actually made appraisal at a much more expensive price. And so my seller paid for another appraisal out of his pocket and made appraisal. And
because it's in his best interest also, right? It's in the seller's best interest to do
because
that. There
was no appraisal waiver on this deal.
Yeah. And then option 3 is that if it doesn't appraise at this price, at this list price, I'm not going to purchase this house.
Right, which is kind of redundant because it already says it in the third-party financing.
It already says that in your finance, right? That if that's what the financing is. Sellers
are going to look for option 1 or option 2. Option 1 is best for the seller, but option 2 is pretty good. If you're a buyer, you really don't want to put option 1 unless you are really confident that it's going to make value and your buyers have a lot of extra cash just in case. But I just like option 2. It protects both sides, and I think that's a well-rounded thing. So we offer over asking price, maybe up to 1% over, which is, or not 1%, sorry, 10% over, which is just ridiculous. The $10,000 earnest money, $20,000 earnest money, $1,000 option fee, 5 or less days for that, 15 or less days for financing approval, buyer pays for title. There's no home warranty in there. There's either full or partial appraisal. No closing costs.
No closing costs.
Nope. And just maybe your offer will get accepted.
And I know this from personal experience as well, that even doing all of those things, sometimes you're just outbid by somebody and it's just a bottom line number. And sometimes you're beat out by somebody by $3,000.
Yep.
Or $1,000.
Yep.
And folks will do that. And so it happens. It's just the luck of the draw, and it's unfortunate. And there are homes, though, I will say, I think probably shouldn't say this as a real estate agent, but like I think unfortunately, people are bidding on homes in the 400, 500 price range, $100,000 over list price, $50,000, $100,000 over list price.
Yep.
Man, that's a lot of pressure and that's a lot of extra cash you guys have to have.
And the appraisal waiver kind of screws up the system that was put in place as far as for the appraisals, because now if you're bidding 100,000 over, there's an appraisal waiver, that house closes for 100,000 more, and now that house is able to be used as a comp for other properties. So that's why you're just seeing everything going up. I think you said everything went up 14% so far.
I think, yeah, I remember reading that somewhere about
it's probably even going up even more. Like I've just watched it seems like every month the value of my house is going up $10,000. It's just crazy.
Again, folks, don't get excited and greedy and think, oh, I'll sell my house. You'll have to buy it for just as much. So whatever you think you might make, you're going to have to spend it to purchase your next one.
Yeah. And I hope all those sellers and those builders that are taking advantage of the situation are going to remember how they acted during this. We're seeing or hearing stories of builders, new construction home builders, trying to get out of the contract, trying to find a reason to cancel the contract so they can go resell that house for $100,000 more.
Defaulting somehow and willing to forgo the.
Well, they can get out of it. They can get out. In the builder's contract, it's written that they can pretty much get out for any reason. They can just say that their buyer's being unreasonable.
For the most part, yes. Yeah. They can say that, oh, but you know what? The buyer's unreasonable. They're not meeting requirements, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, it's not happening that frequently, guys.
But I've heard stories.
It's not in their best interest, right? Because they also have a loan on that property, on that development that they're having to continue to pay. So the longer they hold on to the property, the more cash that's bleeding out of their pocket. Yep. So it's in their best interest to sell it too.
So they be careful.
Those are some shady real buyers or builders that's happening to. It's rare, but
oh well.
Again, if you think that you're being like taken, for a spin with a pre-existing home that you're purchasing from a seller, it's a very different ballpark when you're with a new construction, new build, because this whole concept of option period for 10 days to figure out what I want, it's a non-existent. That doesn't even exist.
How do option periods work with new construction, Richa?
They don't.
Oh.
They don't, because you don't have them. You just go straight in. You make an offer. You have earnest money, and a lot of the times, especially for the nicer, higher end custom home builds, they ask for an initial cash payment.
Wow.
That usually is not in play. If it falls through and say you get your earnest money back, that additional cash payment you don't get back.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh well, welcome to 2021. So, Richard, thanks for
please call us, text us if you have questions, folks.
Yes, please call us. Head to Join SWR if you want to be on our team and learn some of these great techniques. There's a few more that I did not share because that's for in-house only. So if you want to join us, head to joinswr.com. Big thanks to Richa for helping me out, Mr. Mark Warner for putting together that amazing intro for the Cat Daddy Smoker Broker Show. Happy April Fools to everyone. Robert will be back next week, and I hope everyone has a great week. See you later.
Bye, guys.